My parents used my college money for my pregnant sister who doesn't know who the father is, but I don't even know who my parents are when they need me. My family is the worst, and I don't say this because I enjoy complaining about them or because I feel bad about some passing triviality. No, I say it because I genuinely believe I've been treated completely unfairly throughout my life, and now that I'm an adult, things haven't improved. In fact, they've gotten much worse. And the main reason behind all of this is my older sister. My sister, to put it mildly, has always been a bit, well, easy. I don't want to use harsh words to avoid getting my post deleted, but anyone who knew her would know what I mean. In high school, she always had a new boyfriend. But here's the thing, one was never enough for her. She cheated on some of them, probably all of them. It always seemed like she was looking for the next exciting thing, someone more interesting or thrilling. Meanwhile, my parents treated her like she was an angel fallen from heaven. Seriously, I'm not exaggerating. My mom looked at her as if she were the light of her life, incapable of doing anything wrong. I never knew whether my parents didn't know what she was doing or if they just didn't care. How could they not have noticed? She was always at parties, coming home late or not at all, and the stories about her adventures spread like wildfire in our small town. But somehow, every time my sister messed up, there was always an excuse. While I, on the other hand, was treated like any other normal child. If I got a bad grade, I'd get scolded. If I didn't clean my room, they'd point it out. Basically, I received the kind of treatment you'd expect from normal parents. But with my sister, it was like they could never admit she did anything wrong. That difference in treatment bothered me deeply. It wasn't that I wanted my parents to treat her badly, but I at least expected them to be fair. My sister, on the other hand, did whatever she wanted, and there was always a reason to justify her actions. Things got much more serious when my sister got pregnant during her 3rd year of college. And when I say I wasn't surprised, I mean it. I'd always thought that, with the lifestyle she had, it was only a matter of time. My sister was known for partying and having relationships with different guys. It's not like she was spending her nights studying and living a chaste life. So, when we found out she was pregnant, it didn't surprise me at all. The worst part was when she admitted it, not just to me but to my parents. She confessed that she didn't know who the father was, which shouldn't have surprised anyone. Obviously, when my parents asked her who her boyfriend was and whether they were going to get married, my sister had to admit she wasn't even sure who the dad was. Yes, you read that right. She didn't know who the father of her child was. She hadn't even had a stable relationship with anyone, and to this day, she's still searching for the real father. She's had DNA tests done with several of the guys she slept with, but so far, no luck. She's already tested the main suspects, the ones she had more than one encounter with, but since they weren't the fathers, now she has to test the ones she had more fleeting flings with. Now, I've always believed that the problems a person creates are that person's responsibility. My sister, with her life of parties and guys, got herself into this mess. I never judged her for living her life as she wanted, but now her problem is affecting my life in a way I never thought it would. Let me explain something. My grandmother, before she passed away, left some money for me and my sister so we could go to college. It wasn't a massive amount, but it was enough to cover basic expenses and help us avoid taking on large student loans. The money was left to my parents with the promise that they would use it to pay for our education. When my sister went to college, part of that money was used to cover her expenses, which seemed fair to me at the time. I was still in high school and knew that when my turn came, the other portion of that money would be there for me. But I was horribly wrong. When it was time for me to go to college, after working incredibly hard to get accepted into a university I really wanted to attend, I went to my mom to ask about the money. At first, she suggested that I go to a cheaper school or consider staying close to home to save costs. I suspected something strange had happened with the money, so I insisted that I wanted to go to the school I had chosen. Finally, I asked them directly, "Where's the money Grandma left?" That's when the truth came out. After a few excuses and evasions, my parents finally admitted that there was no money left. They had spent it all. And on what? To support my sister and her baby. All the money my grandmother had left for our college education had vanished in an attempt to help my sister, who still doesn't know who the father of her child is. The rage I felt in that moment is indescribable. My whole life, I had been treated like the normal daughter, the one who didn't need much attention, the one who always had to do the right thing. And now, because of my sister's irresponsibility, they had stolen my chance at a debt-free education. I had no other option but to take out student loans, and not a small amount. I know I'll be paying off that debt for a very long time. I moved to university with a mix of sadness and anger, and since then, I haven't spoken much to my parents. I'm too furious with them, and honestly, I'm not sure if I want to have a relationship with them after this. When my parents call, I don't even answer. Sometimes they send me messages saying they're sorry, that this was all a misunderstanding, and that we should find a way to fix it. But I don't know how to fix it. I can't undo what they've done. One of the few times I responded, I told them I'd forgive them when I finish paying off my student loans, which will probably be in 40 years, if I'm lucky. I said it more to make a point than as an actual calculation, but it still feels fair to me. They robbed me of my future to fix my sister's mistakes, and now they want me to just forget about it as if nothing happened. My parents insist that I'm not being fair, that my sister was in trouble and really needed the money. According to them, without that money, my sister would have had to drop out of college, and who knows what would have happened to her and her baby. They've told me I can't be so harsh, that they did what they did to prevent my sister from ending up homeless as a single mother with no resources. But that's not my fault. I didn't force my sister to go out partying, get drunk, and sleep with so many men that she doesn't even know who her child's father is. I didn't do any of that, yet I'm the one paying the price. To me, this is a matter of fairness. I have a boyfriend, and since we started dating, we've always been responsible. We've taken care to avoid ending up in situations like the one my sister is now facing. It hurts that, instead of rewarding my responsibility, my parents have chosen to punish me, all to save my sister from the consequences of her own actions. That's why I'm here, because honestly, I don't know if I'm the one being wrong in all of this. Am I wrong for feeling so much hatred towards my parents? Should I try to forgive them? Because honestly, I don't know if I can. Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my previous post. I'm surprised so many people read it. I expected 2 or 3 people to comment, but I ended up spending hours reading all of them. I've seen perspectives from many angles, though most of them agree that I'm not in the wrong and that what my parents did was wrong. Some of you asked if there was anything I could do legally to get the money back, or if I could sue my parents. Unfortunately, the answer is no. The money my grandmother left for our education was handed over to my parents before she passed away, with full trust that they would manage it properly. It was a matter of family trust, not a legal agreement or formal trust fund. There's no document outlining how those funds were supposed to be used. In fact, Grandma probably never imagined things would turn out this way. I think she believed my parents would be fair and treat us equally, but as it's obvious now, that didn't happen. So, unfortunately, I don't have any legal grounds to sue them or reclaim the money. If there were any legal recourse, believe me, I would have already looked into it. But here I am, writing this post because there's not much more I can do besides vent. A lot of people were also interested in knowing more about my sister's life and how things have been going for her after all this. I thought about editing my previous post to add those details, but I quickly realized the situation needed a full update. My sister gave birth to her baby a few months ago. She managed to graduate from college with the help of my mom, and to top it off, she did so without taking on any debt. Everything, absolutely everything, was covered with the money that was supposed to be for both of us, but ended up only benefiting her and her child. The rent for an apartment where she could live more comfortably with the baby was also covered, which, to me, just makes the injustice of this whole situation worse. While I'll be in debt for years, my sister lives relatively carefree, without having to worry about those things. And all she had to do was get pregnant. I don't think she did it on purpose, but sometimes I wonder if she slept with so many men just to get pregnant and end up with this result. But I doubt she imagined things would work out this well for her, getting rewarded for her recklessness. My mom played a crucial role in all of this. Besides taking care of the baby during the day so my sister could attend classes, she also watched him some nights. Supposedly, this was so my sister could study for important exams. But honestly, I have serious doubts about that always being the case. I know my sister and her lifestyle all too well. I'm certain that more than once, while my mom was watching the baby at night, my sister was out at some party or bar. Sure, everyone needs to unwind and have some fun, but what bothers me is that this didn't seem to be an exception in her life. Partying and recklessness have been a constant, and I feel like my mom, in her desire to help, has allowed her to continue with the same irresponsible lifestyle that got her into this situation in the first place. Which makes sense, because if getting pregnant once was like winning the lottery, doing it a second time would be even better. At least that's the logic my parents seem to allow. Meanwhile, I'm working hard to stay on top of my studies and pay off my debts with a full-time job, and all I can think about is how, somehow, my parents continue to reward her irresponsibility. I don't want to sound like a spoiled child who needs everything paid for, but if that was the arrangement with my grandmother, and even my parents knew it, having to work twice as hard just so my sister can have a better life feels incredibly unfair. If this had been different, if she had been in an accident or faced some emergency, I could understand. But we're talking about her having fun and always taking the easiest path. It feels like karma doesn't exist in life. As for my relationship with my sister, it's the same as it's always been. We're not particularly close, but we don't have a bad relationship either. We were never very close, but what's interesting is that throughout all of this, I'm not even that mad at her. Yes, she could have refused the money. She could have said it wasn't fair that I got nothing. But realistically, she was raised this way. She saw an opportunity to get help and she took it. At the end of the day, the real blame lies with my parents. They were the ones who decided to give all the money to her, and even though she didn't turn it down, the ones who really failed here were them. Sometimes I wonder if my sister realizes the magnitude of what's happened, if she's ever thought about what it means that I'm buried in debt while she lives without a care in the world. If she's thought about it, she's never mentioned it. We haven't talked about it since I found out what my parents did. To be fair, we haven't talked at all. It's easier this way, I guess. At least for now. I don't know if I'll ever have an honest conversation with her about all this because, at this point, I don't think it would make any difference. One of the most frustrating things is that, while I'm fully aware that my parents were wrong, I feel trapped in a situation where I can't do anything to change things. My parents try to justify their actions by saying they did it to save my sister, to prevent her from ending up in a worse situation. To be clear, I don't hold any resentment toward my sister's baby. None of this is his fault, and he's an adorable child who deserves all the love and support he can get. My issue isn't with him, it's with how my parents handled this situation and the fact that they never seemed to consider that they had another daughter who also needed their support. I, who always tried to do the right thing, am the one suffering the consequences. And no matter how hard I try, I just can't let it go. Edit, I never said my sister wasn't at fault for what happened, which is why I haven't tried to talk to her either. I'm just saying that my parents, as the ones in charge of the money, bear the biggest responsibility. Maybe 75% to 25%, or maybe 60% to 40%. Update 2. It's been 5 years since I last wrote here, and today I'm back because there's something I really need to share. As always, it has to do with my sister and my parents. For those who don't remember or haven't read my previous posts, you might need a little recap. My parents, in their infinite wisdom, decided to give the money my grandmother left for my education to my older sister. This is the same sister who, at the time, had gotten pregnant by a man whose name she didn't even know, let alone his identity. Well, a lot can happen in 5 years, and boy, things have happened. I don't even know where to start. Perhaps the most relevant thing is that, as I suspected, my sister still hasn't figured out who her child's father is. Yes, some of the men she slept with agreed to take the paternity test, but most didn't. These were people she had a one-night stand or a few hours with. So, even if some of them could be the father, they've likely chosen not to take responsibility, just in case the test came back positive. Which is horrible, but it's not like my sister was dating fairy tale princes. She was hooking up with people who were just looking to have fun, like she was. And it's not like my sister can force them to take the test. There was no stable relationship, let alone a marriage, to give a judge the power to step in and order a DNA test. I can't imagine my sister going before a judge with a list of names, asking him to force these men to take the test. Although, I'll admit, I'd have loved to be a fly on the wall in that courtroom. The judge's face upon receiving such a request would have been, at the very least, interesting. I don't know if my sister tried or not, but if she had, it would have been a spectacle. I'm not a judge, nor will I ever be, but at least a case like that would have made my day among all the boring ones. Anyway, as I was saying, she still hasn't found the father of her child, and it's something my parents mentioned in passing during a recent conversation. Yes, after years of barely any contact, my parents decided to call me. Over the years, they've sent the occasional message to wish me happy birthday or happy holidays, though not even every year. Our relationship, as you can imagine, is almost non-existent. However, this time they called to make a request that, frankly, I don't know how they had the audacity to make. They wanted money. Yes, you read that right. After everything that's happened between us, my parents thought it would be a good idea to ask me for money. It seems their financial situation isn't going as well as they'd like. Apparently, they've been helping my sister over the years, which doesn't surprise me. And now they need to do some necessary renovations on the house, and they thought I could help. They didn't ask for it as a gift, but as a loan. The funniest part is that they said they'd rather ask me than the bank because, according to them, we're family, and it's better to ask a daughter than a stranger. I guess their credit score isn't great if I'm their first and only option. I won't lie, I was instantly furious at the request. So, without much thought, I told them that they weren't my parents. That all my money was being used to pay off my student loans, and that I had nothing to offer them. Then, I simply hung up. It's true that I'm using my money to pay off my student debt, that's no lie. However, it's clear that's not the real reason I didn't lend them the money. The bigger reason is that I don't trust they'd pay me back. Even if they do need that money for the renovations they claim, I can't help but think that as soon as my sister gets into another problem, my parents wouldn't hesitate to give that money to her instead of paying me back. They've done it before, and I'd be incredibly naive to think they wouldn't do it again. As for my personal life, since it's been so long, I should mention that my high school boyfriend and I are planning to get married. We both have stable jobs and feel it's the right time to take that step. It's one of the few aspects of my life that brings me genuine happiness, especially after everything I've been through with my family. I've read a lot over the years, and starting my own family seems better than sticking with the one I had. I know many people are probably curious about what's been going on with my sister, so here's an update. No, she hasn't had another baby. To be honest, I would have lost that bet if I had made it, because I was almost convinced she would end up pregnant again. I don't know if she's learned her lesson, been more careful this time, or just had better luck, but I'm glad she hasn't brought another child into the world if she's not capable of giving them a better life. According to what my parents have told me, she's had a couple of formal relationships in these years, but nothing that's lasted very long. I can't say if she's been unfaithful to those boyfriends or not because, honestly, I don't know. And it's not something I'm particularly interested in. At this point, my sister is a chapter I'd rather close. So here I am, 5 years later, once again facing the consequences of decisions other people made. I know I'm not the only person who has had problems with their family, and there are people in much worse situations than mine. But sometimes, it's just exhausting to have to deal with all of this. I appreciate you reading my story again, and while I don't have any major revelations to share, I needed to vent and let you know how things have been during this time. Update 3. No matter how much time passes, it seems my story with my family always finds a new twist. This time, it's thanks to my sister. The latest development in her life is that she's opened a profile on one of those platforms for posting, well, content without clothes. I'm sure I don't need to mention the exact name. It's pretty well known. And before anyone asks, no, I'm not going to share my sister's profile. That would just be way too weird. I have to admit, if there's one thing I've always respected about my sister, it's that when it comes to work, she's not lazy. She hasn't quit her formal job to fully dedicate herself to this platform. She's doing it as a side hustle, a kind of extra income. I'm not going to dive into the details or judge whether it's right or wrong, but I'll give her credit for always having a certain hardworking mentality. Still, I can't help but find it strange to think about how my parents are dealing with this. As those who have followed my story already know, my parents are always the first to back up anything my sister does. No matter what it is, they've always been her biggest defenders. I wonder how they're processing this. I wouldn't be surprised if, instead of feeling embarrassed or worried, they're saying something like, "Good for her, our daughter's found a new way to make money." I'm joking, of course, but given the blind support they've always shown her, deep down, I wonder if that might be closer to the truth than I'd like to admit. Anyway, the story keeps moving forward. What's certain is that my family never ceases to surprise me, for better or for worse. Well, mostly for worse, because they still haven't done anything that I would consider even remotely decent. Update 4. Well, it seems my parents have finally lost all connection to reality, or at least that's how I feel after learning the latest about them and my sister. Honestly, what I'm about to share has left even me, someone who's used to their strange decisions, a little bewildered. Before I get into that, I want to address something. Yes, I'm married now. I didn't mention it in the previous update because, frankly, no one seemed all that interested. But since someone brought it up, I thought I'd mention it here in case anyone cares. My husband and I are doing well, we're happy, and we're enjoying a peaceful and stable life, far from all the family chaos. Now, back to my parents and my sister. After my last update, where I mentioned them asking me for money and my sister's new career path, I've learned that they've finally started the renovations they've been wanting to do on their house. So far, nothing surprising, right? Well, what really caught my attention were some social media posts my parents made about the renovations. They don't mention me directly, but what they wrote seems to be some kind of indirect reference to me. They talk about how they've managed to accomplish all of this thanks to their daughter's hard work, emphasizing that without her, they wouldn't have been able to do it. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then I realized they're probably talking about my sister and her new line of work. What's truly strange is how proud they seem. According to them, they're very proud of everything their daughter has overcome in the last few years. This left me completely baffled because, while I have nothing against people working on those platforms, I just can't imagine parents being that proud of it. I'm not sure if my parents know exactly where that money is coming from, or if they're in complete denial. Honestly, I don't even know how to process it. The funniest, or maybe strangest, part is that in one of their posts, someone commented directly with something like, "Did you know your daughter is working on that adult content platform?" And the weird thing is, my parents haven't deleted that comment yet. I don't know if it's because they haven't seen it, don't know how to respond, or simply don't know they can delete it. Either way, I no longer feel anger or resentment toward them. It's as if everything they do, every strange decision they make, just serves as entertainment for me. It's almost surreal. Before, all of this would have infuriated me, but now I just laugh. Watching how my parents navigate this ship of confusion and contradictions while blindly supporting my sister is, at best, comical. And it's liberating to be able to see things from this new perspective. I no longer feel affected by what they do or say. Everything they do now seems like part of some bizarre show, and I'd rather stay far away from it. Update 5. I'm seriously considering selling my TV because, honestly, I don't need any more entertainment than following the lives of my parents and sister. It's like watching a less famous, but equally dramatic version of the Kardashians. So, it turns out my parents and sister have started some sort of media battle, though without the fame or massive following. I don't have all the details of what sparked the fight, but judging by their social media posts, they're clashing over their life choices. My parents seem to be upset with my sister for what she's doing to supplement her income. On the other hand, my sister is furious because, according to her, my parents only value her for the money she's been providing. My best guess, and probably the key to this whole drama, is that my parents have finally figured out what my sister is doing on that platform I mentioned in an earlier update, or maybe it's just bothering them now. The funny thing is that before, they didn't seem too bothered or concerned, but now something has shifted. My theory is that my sister has likely stopped giving them money, and that's where the problem started. Maybe as long as she was helping them financially, they turned a blind eye, but now that the money flow has stopped, their so-called principles have magically resurfaced. On the flip side, my sister is feeling resentful because she thinks that, to my parents, her value lies only in the money she can provide. Apparently, the moment the money stopped, their unconditional support also vanished. It's something that doesn't really surprise me, but it makes me reflect on just how toxic their dynamic is. The funniest part, if you can even call it that, is that I'm completely on the sidelines of this situation, watching the drama from afar and feeling like I need a forum or a subreddit full of theories and speculation about what on earth is happening. The details are eating away at me, and as much as I don't want to get involved, I can't help but feel curious about how this whole thing is going to end. Update 6. I needed more details, and although I know some may see it as a bad move, I decided to reach out to my sister. I asked her for her side of the whole mess, and while it's just her perspective, it's pretty interesting. I don't have, nor do I expect to get, my parents' version, so here's what I know for now. According to my sister, my parents always knew how she was making her extra money and didn't care much as long as she was helping them out. When I didn't lend them money for their home repairs, they turned to her. She agreed, but when she tried to collect the loan, my parents told her they couldn't pay her back. The most surprising part is that they even asked her for more money later for something else I don't even remember. But the key point is, when she refused, my parents started posting those social media updates about the pride of earning an honest living, clearly aimed at her, just like they did with me in the past. It's ironic, because while my sister was paying their bills, they didn't seem to care much about where the money was coming from. But now, suddenly, what she does is no longer honorable. My sister also shared a bit about her life, but nothing relevant or new beyond what you'd probably expect. So for now, that's all there is. If there's a new season of my family drama, you know where to tune in. And by the way, I'm open to suggestions for what to name this soap opera.